If you're looking to start an online business where you want to sell some kind of online courses or coaching programs or anything like that, and you're looking for your own profitable online business idea, or if you already have a business idea and you want to make sure you target the right audience, you want to make sure that you actually find the gap in the market and get a lot of traction with your idea so you can get a lot of traffic to your website, a lot of first paying customers for your online business, then you will absolutely love this video. Hi, my name is Primoz Božić. I'm recording a lot of these videos that are super in-depth deep dives into starting and growing your online business. And in this video, I want to show you 42 examples of profitable online business ideas. Now, these are not going to be vague examples like, hey, start a catering business, or hey, sell your products on Amazon. These are going to be specific examples of real businesses, and 90% of these are actually coming from my friends, from people that I know. So I know that these are profitable businesses, and many of them make as much as 6 or 7 figures online. And they are authentic businesses. They all started basically from scratch, up from, like, let's say 2 years ago to anywhere from like 5 to 10 years ago. But hopefully these examples will give you some ideas what to do with your business as well, because oftentimes the best ideas come out of just seeing, oh, somebody's doing this and I could do something similar for a different audience or for a different skill that I have. And hopefully this video will give you a lot of different ideas that will help you create your own profitable online business idea. Now, before you watch this video, if you haven't done so yet, I do have a couple of other helpful videos, or should I say masterclasses, for you that you will enjoy. I might reference some of these frameworks as I walk through this video, but if you haven't watched this yet and you want more of an idea how to actually come up with your own business idea, you can watch my video on finding a profitable online business idea. I also have a video on validating a business idea, so you can test your idea before you put hundreds of hours and months of work into it to practically know if it's going to be a big hit before you ever, create your website or start working on it. So watch that as well. And finally, I also have a masterclass on how you can choose your niche and target market. Plus, I have other videos on my YouTube channel that you can check out. Like, for example, I have a video where I critique a lot of different business ideas and I show what's good and what's not good about them. I have a video where I tell you whether you should target an English market or a market in your native language. And I'm also going to create more videos down the line. So check out those videos if you need any extra additional support. But now let's dive into this video. Now, one final thing I do want to cover before we dive into the video is I see a lot of videos online with profitable business ideas. And there are things like, hey, start a cigar shop, start a catering business, sell products on Amazon. And the biggest problem I see with that is that if 100 people or 1,000 people do the exact same thing, it's just not going to be a great business idea anymore because everybody's going to be doing the same thing. So don't use these ideas here. Don't copy these ideas, because if you copy them, it's likely that you will be entering a market that's already more saturated. They already have a lot of competitors, because a lot of people have already, come into this market and built successful online businesses. So instead of just directly copying these ideas, what you want to do is use them as inspiration for spin-off ideas. So you can find an idea and let's say, oh, this guy's teaching illustration to a Spanish audience. I could do that for a Slovenian audience. Or, oh, this person's teaching animation. I could teach 3D modeling. Try to use these ideas to get inspiration and don't copy them. Okay, so without further ado, let's go over these ideas. I'll go over each idea. I'll share some context with you. I'll share what I love about some of these ideas. I'll spend a bit more time on some than the others, but just sit back, relax, enjoy, and soak in all of the information. Have a notepad ready as well so you can write down your own ideas as well. And yeah, let's dive in. So the very first idea is about drawing cartoons from everyonelovescartoons.com from Rob Middleton. I think this is great. Like, Rob is a great cartoonist and he has a couple of online courses specifically teaching specific cartooning skills and storytelling and things like that. He also has a lot of great articles on this topic. And I just think it's a super fun business idea because that's something that he enjoys doing. That's something that he's been doing for years. That's what he does on his, train ride to Tokyo every day. And I think it's just a brilliant idea to take a hobby that you have, and it can be any hobby that you have, and see if you can teach that online. See if you can teach other people how to do that as well. And you could apply that to all different sorts of painting, like acrylic painting, like watercolors, any sort of painting, any sort of art, any hobbies that you have are worth exploring if you feel like you're fairly good at them and a lot of friends ask you questions about it. It's worth validating that idea, that because maybe there will be something there. Okay. Next idea, playing bass. This is from Luke McIntosh from Become a Bassist, one of my long-term clients. He has this amazing YouTube channel where he teaches a lot of people how to play bass. He also has articles on his blog. He also has online courses about things like leveling up your ear, or leveling up your technique, or leveling up your groove. So all of different types of things that you can do with bass, like from beginning things like how do you learn technique, and then more advanced things like how do you groove better, how do you learn to play songs by ear. You will have more advanced courses in the future as well. So you can take this idea and think to yourself, well, can I teach some kind of an instrument? Maybe it's drums, maybe it's clarinet, maybe it's saxophone, maybe it's something else. But perhaps there is some kind of an instrument that you're really good at. Maybe it's electric guitar, and that not many people currently teach online. So do your research, validate your idea, and maybe there's something there. The next example is electronic dance music from Will from edmtips.com. This is another example of a business that's more in the music industry, that's doing really, really well. And you can take this idea and think about different ways in which you could create a business in the music industry. Like maybe you could teach people how to rap, or how to compose music, or how to write songs, or techno music, or metal music, or something like that. There are probably a couple of really profitable niches in there, because a lot of people want to learn these skills, and there might be a gap in the market where nobody's really offering this kind of a website or this kind of courses or coaching programs, and then you can come in and you can teach that. Next, we have animation from rustyanimator.com. So Rusty is a professional animator. I think he used to work for Disney, and he created a lot of different guides and articles, and he has a coaching program that helps people become professional animators without having to go to an animation school. So I think that's a brilliant idea as well. How you can use this idea is you can think about, maybe you want to teach something like 3D modeling, maybe you want to teach a specific software like Maya or Max or something like that. Think about all the technical skills that you have. Like maybe even you're good at like a programming language. Maybe you're great at developing apps, some type of apps, like maybe you want to teach Android development or something like that. Think about all the skills, all the passions, all the things that you have. And you can then start testing those ideas with the technical skills that you have, because you can definitely build an online business teaching things like animation online. You can also go more specific. Like for example, Heidi Sue, for a successful fashion designer, she actually teaches Illustrator to fashion designers. So you can take a tool like Illustrator or Photoshop, and even though there might be a lot of different courses that already teach that online, and there might not be a gap in the market for that, you might be able to take a skill like Illustrator and apply it to a specific audience. So you can think about who are all the people that are using Illustrator, and maybe there are certain audiences that like need Illustrator for a certain purpose for their work, and nobody teaches them how to do it well. Like for example, you have the AutoCAD program, which is great for essentially things like architecture and so on and so on. And maybe there's a specific niche. Maybe there's landscape architects who want to learn how to use AutoCAD, to design certain parks or things like that in that. And I'm making these things up a little bit, but you can think about how you can apply these things. Like Photoshop, you can teach it to photographers. You can teach it to online entrepreneurs who use it to create their YouTube thumbnails. You can take a tool that a lot of people are using and then find that audience that's not being served well. And especially if you think about, well, what's the audience that you would fit into before you learn that skill? Like, for example, you learned how to use Illustrator as a fashion designer, then you could say like, oh, let me see if other fashion designers are struggling with this and if they can help them out in a certain way. So you can use this idea to go more niche in the niches that are more saturated. So for example, even if like the animation niche is more saturated now, you could teach a specific animation tool or you could teach a specific program to a more specific audience. And for more details on that, highly recommend checking out the slice and dice technique that I share in Finding Your Niche video, because it goes into a lot more detail on how you can take a certain skill or a certain niche and then slice it further, and get a lot of ideas which audience to target specifically. Next up, we have a business about the recitation of Quran from Idris from recitingtune.com. This one is just super fascinating because I worked with Idris for quite a few months, and I learned that a lot of people actually want to get better at reciting Qari, or like or reciting Quran. And I never imagined that you could build a business around that, but I think it's interesting. I feel like in the religious space, there's a lot of things that you can teach to people. If a lot of people ask you a certain thing over and over again, there might be things in religious niches that you can pursue and add a lot of value to people. There might be even be space for things like, you know, teaching Buddhism, for example, because I would imagine a lot of people want to learn that online that might not have access. Like in Slovenia, there's few places that you can learn about Buddhism in person. But maybe people want to learn about this online. So some of the more religious niches, if that's what you're really excited about, if that's what you're passionate about, that's also really worth exploring. And then you could even try to combine like a religious niche with something else if there's a specific thing. Like, for example, you could teach people how to fast better if you have some kind of, you know, fasting or something like that. So you could combine it with nutrition and so on and so on. So there's a lot of things that you can do there. Next, you have Diana Rowan from dianarowan.com, who's teaching people, or who taught a lot of people how to play harp. So that's another example of a, you know, instrument that you wouldn't imagine that you can build an online business around, but you can definitely build a profitable online business around that. So even if you have some kind of an obscure instrument that you teach, it's actually a higher chance that, you know, it's going to be a profitable niche, because there is going to be likely way less competition. So don't dismiss things before you go out and test them, because even, you know, from something like playing harp, you can teach that really well and build a whole business around it. Next, let's go into a little bit more fashion. Let's look at personal style, and I have two examples for you here. One is from Hilde Fossen from getstyleconfidence.com. She teaches style for female entrepreneurs in a very quirky way, as you can see. And she teaches women how to, you know, confidently find their own style. So she's targeting specifically female entrepreneurs. With style, it's kind of tricky because it is such a saturated market and so many people are teaching style online. So you do have to find and carve that niche out. So she decided to focus on female entrepreneurs, and she's doing really well with that. While on the other hand, Peter from theessentialman.com is teaching style for tech guys. Like, just look at his website. He says like he's New York City's only private personal stylist for successful men in tech. And that's an idea that he didn't necessarily start with. He started teaching style to basically everybody, and then he realized that the people in tech were his best clients. So that's how he changed his niche. He repositioned his business, and now he's focusing on serving his very best clients. So just like this, you could think about style for, let's say, lawyers, or you could think about teaching business casual style, like finding some kind of a niche, finding some kind of a spin-off. You could even teach style in your own language. You could teach style to Spanish people. You could teach style to, you know, any audience that you feel like has to, you know, look really good. You could teach style to authors when they go and they have speeches. Like, you have to test these ideas, but there's a lot of ideas how you can go more specific than just teaching style, because again, there are so many people nowadays teaching style. It's not good enough. But if you can find something like, you know, successful men in tech, or your own kind of a niche, then that's going to make your business a lot more profitable in the long run. Next, let's do something completely different. Evie Jones from eviejones.com teaches people how to write and illustrate children's books. I think that's a phenomenal business idea. That's something that she was good at. That's something she was good at teaching. And again, not something that you might think of as a profitable online business idea, but she decided to test this idea. It took off really fast. And now she has a lot of paid programs that help future and aspiring authors write and illustrate their first children's books. Next, let's stay in the artist space, and let's look at Antrice Wood from savvypainting.com. She's teaching mindset to painters. So she specifically focuses on helping painters silence their inner critic, overcome perfectionism, and things like that. And you could teach, painters specific techniques. You could teach them mindset. You could teach another audience mindset. Maybe, mindset for writers, because they might keep getting stuck in their own head or something like that. There's a lot of ways in which you can twist this idea and apply it to your own audience. You could even teach painting for your own language or in your own country. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do. Even you can do such specific things as this company at it's hard for me to, soundernadornmentsdecor.com. This is a company from one of the clients, from one of my friends. She teaches people how to paint door hangers. Like this, she built a business about this. She has a lot of different courses, and one of them is on this topic. She has, I think, a membership as well. But like these little things that you put on your doors, she's building an incredible business out of this. So again, no matter how obscure your hobby is, it's best to test the idea rather than dismiss it first, because there might be something that you can teach to people like that's really, really specific, really, really niche, but a lot of people actually might really, really love it. Next, let's go into a little bit more of language learning. And this is an example from Christina Rebuffet from Speak English with Christina. She teaches successful and ambitious people who are typically in the business space how to speak really good American English and how to speak it fluently. So I think that's, a great way to differentiate. Rather than saying like, oh, I'll just teach English, I could teach, English, but just American English. I think there's a lot of gaps in the market with language learning. Like even earlier, I tried to Google something like learning Slovenian. Like there's no really good courses out there on, learning Slovenian as a foreigner. So if you're living in something like Slovenia and you're a Slovenian language teacher, then you could very easily teach, people how to learn Slovenian. I also, when I moved to the Netherlands where I live right now, it was really difficult to find any great online resources for learning Dutch. You would think that the language learning market is saturated, but actually I found that it's not. So if you are a teacher of a specific language, I would definitely suggest you to explore that. We have another example here from Geraldine from Comme un Français. She teaches people how to speak everyday French because she started at a time where there were very few educational videos online that were delivered in like a fun way and useful as well. And she built an incredible business teaching people everyday French. So she focuses on teaching specific expressions and phrases and things that you can actually use when you go to France to speak to people locally. She goes into the ins and outs and nuances. She's not teaching it in like this boring grammar way, but she's teaching you things that are actually useful for you. So this is just another great example of a language learning business. Okay. Next, let's go into different kinds of learning. Let's look at Jim Quick from quicklearning.com. He's teaching a lot of different things. One of them is memory training, for example. I do believe this is something that he started out with. He also teaches things like speed reading and so on and so on. So for those people who want to get really impressive memorization skills or speed reading skills, who want to learn a lot faster, he is the guy to go to. Like he is, can memorize a million different numbers, things like that. And he turned that, which might be, let's say to some people that might be a weird thing or a weird skill. He found out that a lot of people want to learn that. And now he's built an incredible business teaching just that. And there's another guy who is called Scott H. Young, and he's also teaching learning, but in a slightly different way. So he's teaching ultra learning, which essentially means, how do you learn something way faster than you typically would? For example, he had this crazy challenge where he tried to learn 4 years of MIT, I think, computer science program. He learned that completely remotely, online, based on the resources there. He took the final exam that was available on the internet and he passed it. And then he wrote about how he did that in just 1 year. So he took a 4-year program, condensed it down to a year. And that's like the whole idea of ultra learning. Like, how can you learn something 1, 2, 3, 4 times faster than it typically would take you? And that's something that he built a business about. He even wrote a book about that, and that became a bestseller. More in language learning, this is actually one of Scott's friends. His name is Benny Lewis. He runs a website called fluentin3months.com. And he's not focusing on teaching a specific language, but he's teaching how do you learn any language really, really fast. And by really, really fast, I mean in just 3 months. So he has his unique methodology that allows him to learn languages really, really rapidly. And I do believe he's learned like 5, 10, 15, 20 different languages. And he teaches that framework rather than the typical approaches, which take a much longer time. So it's almost like taking ultra learning and applying it to language learning to find his own niche. I think that's really, really interesting. And then he packages it in a compelling way. More on learning. This is what one of my friends did, James Ashenhurst from masterorganicchemistry.com. He used to be a chemistry tutor. He kept looking online for great resources to recommend to his students. He couldn't find any, and he felt for years that somebody should create something where, online you can learn a lot about chemistry. And then he did it, and his website actually gets millions and millions of views every year. He sells certain study guides that make it easier for people to learn the skills. He has over 300 articles on his website about organic chemistry. So you could do the same thing and teach physics or history or geography or maths or anything that you're really good at. And if there's no gap in the market, in the English market, you could always apply that to your own local language if you're a non-native English speaker, and you can probably find a niche there. I do believe that there's a lot of space available online in the education space where you can really teach these topics in a much better way than they're typically taught. If you feel like you do have something new, something interesting to share, if you have this desire to help people, then teaching skills that they teach you in school, like you could even teach something like quantum mechanics. Like you could teach any skill, any subject, and see if there's a gap in the market there, and then you could build a business around that. You could even build a business around speech pathology, like Karen from drkarenspeech.com. So she helps the teachers who are working with students with special needs. She shows them how to really teach those students really, really well and make sure that they remember the things and that they learn things well, and so on and so on. And she built a whole business around that. Then we have meditation for programmers. So the meditation space or the mindfulness space, I would say, is pretty crowded right now on the internet, but you can still find certain niches like meditation for lawyers or programmers, or maybe there's a different niche, like maybe it's meditation for athletes, becoming the mindful athlete or something like that. If meditation can really help a specific audience and you can relate to it, there might be a place for you to build your own business, like this website, Coding Mindfully, which is specifically focused on teaching programmers how to code, by being calmer, by being more focused, by not getting so stressed out, and so on and so on. So you can take a skill like meditation and apply it to a very specific audience and find your niche there. Or you could do something completely different. This is a website from Jared Tandler. He's a psychology coach for poker players, and he actually wrote multiple books on the topic. And these are called Mental Game of Poker. So Mental Game of Poker is his niche. So he's applying the mindset thing, not to painting, but to poker players. So he found his niche there. So again, there might be these strange niches that you might not even think about. And maybe they're intersection of your hobbies. Maybe you used to play online poker in the past and you were really passionate about that. Maybe you want to teach mental game to video gamers because there's a lot of money in video games nowadays. And there's a lot of pressure on people competing, and maybe you want to teach them how to improve their mental game if they have a tendency to freak out or get too nervous or something like that. There's a lot of different niches out there that you can try to find if you think about, okay, how could I apply this idea to my own business? Next, let's go into something different. Business coaching. Okay, a lot of people are doing that, but not many people are doing it specifically for therapists. So if you think about it, therapists are wondering, how do they get more clients? How can they raise their rates and things like that? And that's what Tiffany from heytiffany.com does. You could apply the same idea to almost any market. So instead of teaching people like, hey, this is how you freelance or this is how you raise your rates, and being just very general, because these markets are very, very saturated, you can pick a very specific, very niche market, like for personal trainers or for math tutors, show math tutors how to get more clients, how to raise their rates, and so on and so on. I think that would actually be a great idea. You could focus on anyone, like you could focus even on climbing coaches or something like that. There's plenty of different audiences, massage therapists, hairstylists, and so on and so on, that you could help and teach them the business skills, especially if you can relate to something like that. Next, this is one of my long-term clients. I actually forgot to share the website. So the website is called Byte by Byte, as you can see in the top left corner. But this is from Sam Gavis-Huxon. He has a website dedicated to helping programmers get jobs at companies like Google, Apple, and Facebook. And he helps them master the specific coding interviewing skills that they need to get accepted at these companies. So instead of just teaching general career advice or negotiation or interviewing skills, he found a specific audience that he could relate to, because he, worked at really good companies in the past, and he got offers from places like Google and so on and so on. And he noticed that a lot of his friends asked him questions about how he did that. So he applied that to his business, and over the past few years, it has really grown explosively. Like, you would not think that this is an incredible idea maybe when you hear about it, but it has really grown dramatically. And you could do the same thing. Like, you could teach interviewing skills to, again, maybe lawyers, how to get jobs at the top, law firms. Or you could apply coding to any, you could apply interviewing skills or negotiation skills to any industry out there, to get accepted to the top companies. Like, there's many, many different ways in which you could apply this. Like, through finance, like teaching people how to master finance job interviews so they can get a job on Wall Street. Like, there's an unlimited amount of possibilities here. Next, you could also teach writing without a degree. So this is what Gabrielle teaches from DIYMFA.com. So she's basically telling you, like, hey, you don't need to go to a writing school in order to learn how to write well. Instead, let me teach you how to do it. And she teaches people like how to, write better, write more, write smarter, and so on and so on. Next, let's go into a completely different audience. And just while we're on this topic, you could teach writing novels, you could teach writing business books. Maybe there's some kind of a gap in the market there, like children's books. I think that was brilliant, what Evie Jones is doing. Some markets might be more saturated, like writing business books, but there might be something related to writing that you can still teach a lot of people. Again, maybe mindset for writers, so people can stop, silencing their inner critic. Like, I know Steven Pressfield has a lot of successful books on this subject, for example, The War of Art, and there's a couple of other books that he's written. So there's clearly a lot of demand for that. And I'm not sure if anybody really teaches that. So maybe that's, a profitable niche for you. Okay, let's go into dating. So dating is a super saturated market, but there are still ways to stand out. Like, for example, my friend Camille Virginia from masterofflinedating.com. So she's taking a different angle. She's not saying, hey, just go on Tinder and, things will work out and they'll be great. Even though some people might teach, how to get dates and how to build a great relationship through Tinder. I think that could be a profitable niche. And then you could apply it to any dating app. But she's taking a completely different approach. She's targeting the people who are sick of dating apps, and she actually wrote a book on the topic as well, and she's working on some much bigger things. But right now, like, she has a great gap in the market. She's focusing on offline dating, and it's just an interesting angle, to find. Or like Sarah Jones from introvertedalpha.com, you could focus on dating for introverted men. So again, she's not focusing on older men, but she's focusing specifically on helping introverted men, because she found out that, like, introverted men can be really attractive if they do the right things. And then she decided to start, coaching that audience. And she has a lot of high-end programs, great coaching programs. She has a whole team teaching people. That's another interesting idea to pursue. You could then teach introverted women, or you could teach, some different kind of dating. Maybe you could say dating for athletes or something like that, because maybe they have different requirements or something like that. You can think about, these different weird combinations of things that you typically wouldn't think about. And just even as you're listening to this video, think about the different ideas that you could get and keep writing this down. Like, if something pops into your mind, go watch my business idea validation video. You can test these ideas in as little as a day and see if they catch a lot of traction or not. But don't dismiss ideas just because you think like, wow, that's stupid or that would never work, because some of those ideas might be the ones that actually take off. Next, let's look at more business skills. So business, we would say like, oh, it's a very saturated market. It's true, but not if you teach it to something like designers. So this is an idea from one of my friends, Alen Faljic. He runs a website called beyondusers.com. And he was a designer. He worked at some big design firms, and he realized, hey, a lot of people are talking about the importance of business skills for designers, but nobody's really teaching how to do it. And then he spent the next few years building a great business about it. He runs a high-end coaching program, which has been sold out, I think, 3-4 times in a row, and has gotten bigger and bigger. He has hired other people to help him train these designers. He has like a 90% or 91% success rate with his program. And yeah, like he's just doing an amazing job teaching business to a specific audience that just didn't have the business skills, but they know they need them in order to serve their companies as best as possible. Next, we have something completely different from Ryan Hildebrand. He teaches people how to speak at TEDx events. So he was able to do a couple of successful TED Talks, and he realized he was pretty good at finding ideas and crafting them and helping get people land these TED Talks. He also organized a few TED Talks by himself. There's maybe even an idea here about how to organize a TEDx event. I mean, some people would want to learn that, but that's a very interesting niche. So you can also think about like, are there certain things that you're doing in your own life that you do a lot of? Maybe you want to teach people how to, like, I don't know, do triathlons. I remember that because Ryan in his free time likes to do Ironmans and things like that. But you could teach people how to do a triathlon. I don't think there's much competition there. You can think about the things that you have done a lot of, you have a lot of experience in, and then go test those ideas and see how exactly they turn out. Let's go into the fitness space. I didn't want to start with this space because it's a more saturated space, but we will cover a little bit or a few of the fitness niches as well as the business niches for the last 10 or 12 ideas that we have. But one idea in fitness that I really, really love is nerd fitness, which is fitness for nerds. So fitness for people who are more nerdy, who are not this kind of people that you typically see go to the gym, but they might want to get fit or they might want to get strong, for their own reasons, but in a really fun way that they really enjoy. And that's how nerd fitness was born. There's other ways in which you can spin fitness. Like Zach Arnold from optimizeyourself.me, he teaches fitness to sedentary workers, specifically those in Hollywood. So for example, if you work in post-production and you work 16-hour days, how can you maintain your sanity? How can you deal with this sedentary lifestyle? He actually teaches people like how to move around, like the different exercises they can do, and so on and so on, but for a very, very specific audience that he could relate to. Or you could again take a different angle and focus on the science of fitness. And I would say science of strength, science of weight loss, science of building muscle. Those are all the different topics that renaissanceperiodization.com focuses on. It's a fairly large website, and if you go study it now, you will see they offer a lot of different programs for a lot of different types of audiences. But how they really started out is by having this angle of, how can science make you stronger? And they started writing some ebooks and developing some programs on this topic. And after that, their business took off and they expanded into different niches as well. But their angle was always like, hey, we're PhDs. We have like more than 15 PhDs on our team. We're actually showing what science says about fitness. You could apply this angle to, anything, maybe science of body training, maybe science of, let's say, science of savings. I don't know if there's anything scientific related to that. Like an example that comes to mind is emotional eating or mindless eating, which really combines the idea of psychology with eating. So maybe you're a scientist, but you're also like really interested in something like intermittent fasting, and you've read all the studies on the topic. That might be something that you want to teach. And then if you can't teach that to a large market, then maybe you could teach it to your local market, to teach it to the to Spanish speaking people or something like that. So there's another possible idea that works really well. Or you could teach a skill, a sport, tennis, hockey, ice hockey, grass hockey, table tennis, badminton, any sport under the sun, soccer, American football, any sport under the sun. Like this example of tennis from fuzzyyellowballs.com. It's a great website that teaches tennis players how to improve their tennis technique. Like there's a million different sports under the sun, and I'm sure a lot of them actually have unexplored niches, either in the English market or in more specific language markets. Like, I don't think there's an online course on tennis in Slovenian market. I don't think there's even an online course on basketball in the Slovenian market, where I come from. That's why I'm keep bringing on Slovenian market. But there's also many different, sports, different language combinations. There's probably something that you can find if you start combining these niches, and just think about the things that you're really good at and that you want to teach to other people as well. Next, let's stay in this space and let's focus on powerlifting. So that's a sport that I've done for a long time, and I actually met these guys. They're called the Strength Guys, and they run the website thestrengthguys.com. And they teach powerlifting. They have online coaching for drug-free athletes. So that's their niche. They do a lot of really great online coaching for powerlifting. They have their own unique approach with like really detailed spreadsheets and calculations and things like that. So I think that's a really interesting niche as well. I think there's a lot more to explore here. Like, as I mentioned in my niche video, there's a lot of different niches and things like weightlifting, maybe in the strongman space, in powerlifting, that just aren't explored. Like, I don't think anyone teaches specifically how to compete as a bench press only athlete on the internet. I don't think anyone teaches people how to, cut weight. I'm not sure if there are that many MMA classes on there. So again, lots of different sports that you can think about that you can teach online. You could even teach something like mobility coaching, like the readystate.com. I do believe that previously this was called the Mobility WOD, but now they've rebranded themselves. But basically they teach mobility online. So they teach you, like how you can stay injury-free, how you can become more flexible, how you can actually improve your performance through different mobility exercises. And they built a business around that. And it's an incredible business. Like, if you look at their website, you'll see that they have served some incredible clients like Olympic athletes, celebrities like Jason Statham, and so on and so on. Like, there's a lot of people that they've helped with something that you wouldn't think of, like, oh, this could be a business idea that impacts millions of people, and yet it does. Next, let's focus a little bit on weight loss. I don't like talking about the weight loss market that much because it's very, very, very saturated. But if you do find a specific audience or a specific angle in the market, you can still make things work. One example of that is Nagina Abdullah. She has created a business where she helps ambitious women lose weight through spices. So that's her angle. And she had to test a lot of different ideas until she found this angle that really, really worked. She found it by seeing this moment of traction where she posted a guest post and she got something like 1,500 email subscribers to her email list within just, I think, 24 hours. But she had to test a lot of different angles until she found one that works. And you can learn about how you can test different angles in my business idea validation video, and you can recreate that process. But it is definitely possible to succeed in the weight loss space if you do have a really unique approach that nobody's really talking about. You could also apply weight loss to a local market, like Martin Toff. He teaches weight loss to the Slovakian audience. You could teach it to the Slovenian audience. You could teach CrossFit to a Slovenian audience. You could teach powerlifting to a French audience. There's a lot of these different combinations. And I do believe if you're not if you're not a native English speaker, then targeting your local market nowadays is going to be one of your best options for building a profitable online business, unless you can find a really specific gap in the market in the English market. Next, let's look at the final few ideas. And now I really want to focus on the online business space. I'm not a huge fan of talking about this space because I feel like it is very, very saturated and it is difficult to find problems that nobody's solving. But with a lot of time and effort, you can actually find it as well. Here's a great example from one of my friends, Diana, from dianatower.com. She teaches people how to hire community managers. And that's her niche because she realized she was really good at that, at helping people hire and train community managers that are absolutely incredible. And she built her own business around that. Or you could take a different angle, like another one of my friends, Mark, who's teaching people specifically how to modify their business models. Like, Mark is just a wizard of understanding like all the different kinds of business models and finding a business model that really works well for your own business. And he has like hundreds of pages of notes on those things. He knows every business model under the sun. And that's where I feel like he's really carved out his niche. Like, he really can take a look at your business model and help you find some opportunities to improve and then run certain growth experiments that you didn't think about in the past. So that's a very interesting angle as well, because not really that many people talk about business models on the internet. Next, you could also teach people how to create virtual summits like Navid Moazzez does, or actually you shouldn't do that because then you would just copy his idea. But I think that's a very cool idea. Like you take, a specific thing. Like I remember talking to Navid, he's a long-term friend of mine. He had this idea like, I don't know, 6-7 years ago when he did his first virtual summit and nobody was doing these things and it really blew up for him. And then he said, oh, let me teach this to other people who are experts as well. And they can host their own virtual summit so they can get more paying customers. They can, build relationships with the top experts in their niche and so on and so on. So he found a very specific thing. And I did something similar with teaching people how to write ultimate guides as well, because I found that like, oh, that's a skill that has helped me tremendously and brought a lot of traffic and paying customers to my website. So I started teaching other people how to do that as well. Next, you could teach people how to run a completely different type of a business, like their own Etsy business, which is what Jenny from thursdayandbirch.com does. So you could teach people like how to sell on specific sales platforms, maybe eBay, maybe something else. Jenny chose an Etsy business. But if you ever use like a specific sales platform on the internet and you did really well with that, or you could teach people like how to sell art online or things like that, or how to sell used clothes or something like that. If there's something that maybe it's a little bit weird, but it actually made you a lot of money or something like that, or you really enjoyed doing it, then that might be something that you can teach to others as well. Let's look at more business stuff. So this is one of my friends, Alp from trialandeureka.com. He teaches copywriting, but not just copywriting. He teaches specifically email copywriting. He has a course called Email Prodigy, which I think is just a brilliant name. So he is doing a lot of copywriting for his clients, but then he also takes a couple of coaching clients and he teaches them how to write really solid email copy. So you could go into the copywriting space, which I would say is fairly saturated, but again, you could teach copywriting to Slovenians, or you could teach a very specific type of copywriting that nobody else teaches well. Like, for example, you could go into like Facebook ads copy or landing page copy. And I would say those are fairly saturated, but maybe there is something that you find that nobody's talking about and you could build a business around that. Or finally, you could teach something that you're really good at. Like Selena Su is really incredible at finding publicity for her business. She's been featured in basically all the major media under the sun. And she saw how much that helped her grow her own business. So she decided to start teaching that to other entrepreneurs as well. She built an incredible business around that. And you can also think about certain skills that maybe you're really good at, maybe like, networking for entrepreneurs, or networking for job hunters, or maybe networking for athletes. I don't know if there's any demand for that. You have to test that, but think about all the different skills that you have and then try to apply them to specific audiences that you can relate to. And that's something, again, that we go into a lot more detail in my video on finding your own niche. Okay, we've gone through all the business ideas, and when you find your business idea, that's just the very beginning of the journey. And as you've seen in this video, it's a pretty long video, right? I like talking, I love teaching everything related to starting and growing your online business. And my website, and my name is Primož Božič. You can find more about me at primožbožič.com. But instead of just finding out more about me, what's going to really help you is this guide that I've put together for you. So this is the ultimate guide to starting your own online business, where I break down the whole process of how you can start your own online business. And I'll show it to you here. It's a pretty meaty guide. It's like 102 pages, and I didn't fill it with fluff. Like, I teach you all the things. Like, I show you my own story of how I built my own online business from scratch, and I take you through the whole story. Then I show you how you can start your own profitable online business, make your first $10,000, further your $50,000 online. And then I also show you how you can scale that to over $100,000 a year using some very specific frameworks. And I talk about 6 mistakes that people make when scaling their online businesses as well. So this guide will, help you learn more about my journey, but it will also give you a step-by-step framework that you can use to start your own online business. So you can have this kind of a roadmap. And again, this is a long guide. It's a very detailed guide with a lot of detailed specifics that I share, tons of, specific examples, tons of concepts that I teach you. But think of this as like the roadmap for starting your online business. And I share you, a lot of different additional resources with you as well. And this guide is going to be just a great supplement for everything that I teach you on this YouTube channel. And especially if you enjoy reading content, if you like printing things out, if you like taking some kind of notes, which is more difficult to do with these videos, then you will absolutely love this guide. So check it out, download it, send me an email, and let me know how you liked it. And that's it. So what I want to say is thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope to see you in one of the future videos. And if you like this video, please do make sure you share it with a friend who's looking to find their own business idea, because I do want to help as many people as possible build their own businesses so we can really make a big impact in the world. Like, I do feel that online education is such a great way to work from anywhere, do what you love, but then also impact thousands of people all over the world while being able to travel the world and meet all of these cool people that you admire. And then eventually you can become like a best-selling author, or you can speak at large events and conferences of hundreds or thousands of people. Like, anything is essentially possible once you find a great business idea. So go find a business idea, and then let's build an amazing online business together.